The 137 school children in Kuriga, Kaduna State have been rescued after being in captivity for 17 days. But sadly, according to the governor of the state, the teacher that was abducted with them died in captivity. So sad, may so rest in peace. But beyond Kaduna, we also know what is happening in Delta State, in Bayelsa, and what communities surrounding those states. Is the issue of insecurity, which has reared its ugly head in Nigeria once more. And I want to look at how this is or will affect the Nigerian economy. Our economy is depressed at the moment, but the insecurity now seems to be adding, more negatives to the economic situation. We have two gentlemen in the studio to look at this morning. On my far right is Venerable Samson Popola. He's the chairman of Ogun State Police Community Relations Committee. Good morning, Honorable Venerable Popola.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We also have with us the public affairs analyst, Mr. Bayo Alabodi. Good morning, Mr. Alabodi.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Thank you so much. Let's start with Venerable Popola. Now, the good news of yesterday. Did you see that coming early enough? The rescue of the 137 school children in Kaduna.
Well, I think this has to do a lot with leadership and response to, situation. I really do not think that it will be coming that early, but I was sure that it will eventually come, because we've seen that in recent time the level of response to insecurity challenges have been stepped up by the president and the service chiefs and the like. So I think it's a good news for all of us. We are relieved that at least those children have been, released, and then to the teacher that lost his life, we want to condole with the family and the government and people of Kaduna State on that very sad issue. Well, I think it's a good development that at least those children were released in good time.
Well, certainly in Kaduna and in other northern states where we are having pockets of crisis, bring that down to the Niger Delta. To the issue that we're discussing, no foreign business would want to come to those areas. I think that's a no-brainer. President Tinubu, when he came into office, traveled to so many parts of the world to attract investment to the country. But with the way things are going, how do you think Nigeria will look like in the face, or in the faces and the minds of these foreign countries or foreign investors?
Like I've always been saying, in Nigeria we have this problem of allowing criminality to go into, commercializing criminality. Once you allow criminal tendencies to become a business venture, you find it very difficult, to fight, because once it becomes a means of livelihood for some people, getting them out of it becomes a bit difficult. And that's why it's so important that whenever we have any form of criminality rearing its head, it's better to nip it in the bud rather than to allow it to fester before you fall. But be that as it may, I see some of these things. Some people look at it from criminal, but I think more or less, I think Nigeria is at war with some, quote unquote, some powers that be in and outside of the country. I believe that there are some people that are hell-bent that Nigeria should not develop. Nigeria should not become, the centerpiece of Africa, Africanism, standing for everything that is Africa, standing for everything that is black. And one of the way to do that is to make sure that we do not progress, economically, and whatever way can that be done than, issue of insecurity here and there. Because sometimes when you look at agitation, there must be a reason for agitation. When we started having this issue in the South at the beginning of the South, it was about resource control. We want to control our resources. But when you look at the issue of Boko Haram and these insurgents, you really do not know what they want.
Yeah.
Okay.
You really do not know what they want. What are they actually fighting for? Okay, you've kidnapped, children. Okay, do you want government to do something, apart from this issue of commercialization? pay us 1 trillion, pay us 1 billion. I don't think so. We should look beyond that. There must be some powers behind it, you know. And I believe that with the response, you know, when we talk about investors, investors also take risk. There is nowhere in the world where you have perfect security. So they also weigh, you know, their chances of coming into the country. What do we stand to gain? What do we stand to lose? You understand what I'm saying? But I think the response, the body language of the government will do a lot more than the situation itself. When you find a situation that where you have the government actually fighting this cause and putting everything into it to make sure that it's brought down to the minimum, I don't think it would affect us too negatively.
Okay, Mr. Labadi, growing up, even here in Abeokuta, I used to see some, you know, foreign businesses. I don't know, was Bata a Nigerian company? Was it?
No, it was foreign.
It was
Bata, Leonard,
SUA, and all the rest of them, and they disappeared. I think in the 80s, if I'm right. And when they disappeared, it was not as if security was this bad, you know. Now that the security is bad than then, you know, just like very popular said, the investors also weigh their options. They also look at security situation in countries they come to, but we don't want to ever touch Nigeria. I mean, look at Niger Delta, you know, 17 military personnel killed. You know, those who are even official security tools of the country killed. Yeah. So what do we say about those who are coming in and you know, to run their businesses? How do you think their life will be safe in this environment?
Well, thank you very much, Biodun. I share the passion and sentiment of Venerable, and it's sad to see where we are today. And if we do a very thorough forensic analysis of security, insurgency in this nation, we will see that there's an 8-year gap of what I term insincerity, lack of purpose, and unwillingness to confront this issue frontally. Now, the fact is a fact, and I think we can do a check online. If you look at the hardest farmers' clashes, I stand to be corrected. There's no one person that has been brought to book. That was in the last administration. Not one person was brought to book. And we had the emboldenment, if I may say so, of this element to make kidnapping a parallel economy. And it began to boom, it began to fester, and we have more or less a Frankenstein on our hands today. So there was an 8 years in which absolutely nothing was done. The willpower to confront it was not there. I thank God for what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is beginning to do. If we continue on that trajectory, I believe we may get some results. But it has to be a top-down approach. The body language of the government must be seen to be one that is ready to put its skin in the fight.
Let me quickly cut in here. I apologize for that. You said 8 years, and we had a northern president, and those activities were in the north. Plus, recent times, this crisis in Niger Delta, and the Senate president came out to say these people are not likely to be Niger Deltans. They are likely to be the mercenaries. Now, should we say that the man that sits in that position, the position of the president, you know, in Nigeria naturally is tribalistic? Maybe Tinubu is not doing that because we're not having insecurity in large volume in southwestern part of Nigeria, you know. So why is it so that our leaders seem to be protecting their own when they know that the crisis is from their region?
Now that is a sad part of politics, where we vote. We are responsible for the outcome of our votes, as it were. Now it's a sad development. I won't hide my disappointment from the Senate President for that statement. I don't think it was proper, because no audit has been done, no investigation has been done. But be that as it may, it will have been served him well to have at least kept quiet, and then pray for the best in that area. But beginning to come out frontally to defend your own now makes you look very, very regional and tribal. Already you are prejudiced, as it were. Now, let me say this. In the point I was on initially, if you look at the last 8 years before this government came in, we had service chiefs who were from the north. Basically everyone from the north. The security apparatus was more or less domiciled in the north. But the willpower to control this was just not there. And you see, people who are into criminality are not stupid people. They watch and they see that no deterrence of any kind has been made. Nobody was brought to justice. Justice was not taken to anyone. There was no willpower to fight. And this is where I began to feel very, very pained with the level of technology we have today. Now, there's what is called a drone. As at the time Obasanjo was leaving office, Doni Okupe said it was possible for them to fly a drone across Abuja. If your window was opened, they would see what was happening in there. That was when Obasanjo was leaving office. They had that technology in place. And I believe Obasanjo left office 1999 to 2003. And technology has improved beyond that. There's what is called there's what's called geotrafficking or geofencing, where you could pick the coordinates of anybody within OGTV and their cell phones. If I'm here today now, there's a way technology will pick my phone and know that I was here. And we have NIM, all these registrations that we are told to do that links our identity to our names and things like that. And it becomes like a circus play when we are not able to get basic things like this. And for intelligent people like Nigerians, it becomes very annoying.
Okay, Venerable, it's interesting when we talk about insecurity in Nigeria, because some people would say that we're actually not serious when it comes to providing security for the people. We're not building structures to have security intact in Nigeria. So as such, whatever we are suffering at the different levels, at different states, is as a result of that improper planning of how a society should operate. We talk about the porosity of our borders. We have records of arms in circulation during election period. You talk about how non-state actors are used largely to rig elections and to participate in elections in an illegal way. And you have all kinds of issues all together, and then at the end of the day you come out to say that there is no security in Nigeria. And some have also said that the collusion of some stakeholders also is part of why we are not having headway in that regard. You have listed the facts that we politicize security. Any president that is coming, the last administration, for example, was talking about how the service chiefs are largely from the northern part of the country, and how that has been able to solve the problem of insecurity in the north is another question entirely. So now the leaders that we have, they have responsibilities, and which is that they should and must provide security for the people. How well are we going to have that structure? When are we going to have that structure that will begin to build the different, different stages of development that we begin to see that at the end of the day we have a secured Nigeria?
Thank you very much. It's unfortunate that our security preparedness in Nigeria is mostly reactive, not proactive. A proactive planning will require a certain level of preparedness and infrastructure that needs to be put in place. And once you put that in place, it will help the security planning, it will help the architecture to be able to actualize whatever strategy they have in place. Number one, when we're talking about these advanced countries and how they've been able to fight crime and something like that, it's because they deploy, proactive measures. Proactive measures, like hardly will you have any commercial entity in those Western world where you don't have a CCTV, privately owned. It doesn't have to be government owned. The government has no business in putting CCTV all over Abeokuta. What we need to do is to put a law in place that every commercial activity or any commercial center must have CCTV in and out. It's part and parcel of what you require to open up a commercial enterprise. A public toilet, for example, is what's required in every supermarket, in every filling station, in every bank, in every insurance firm, and everything. When you have this in place, just imagine along Okelewo, you have all those commercial entities. Just imagine that every one of them have CCTV in and out. You can imagine that even if the place where the crime is being perpetrated is not covered by CCTV or by peradventure they got in there and destroyed, at least you still have almost 1 kilometer in and out where their movement in and their movement out will be captured by other, infrastructure that have been put in place. So saying that we are not serious, I think I agree with them that we are not serious about fighting crime. And it's because that most of the crime perpetrated, the godfathers are always those in government. I stand to be corrected. And because we have that complicity, on the part of those that rule us, the propensity or the willpower to fight it would definitely not be there. You can look at an average policeman, for example. You look at an average policeman on the street and you wonder how he killed. Apart from the uniform, how equipped is this man to fight crime? So you look at the uniform, you look at the apparatus, given to him to be able to deploy. Yeah. And you just find that most of the time you just have a policeman, the only thing you have with him is just the condo, or sometimes when you get to a certain level you have anything. But beyond that, what about body cameras? What about other gadgets that, could make him, feel responsible to the 400 that the UN said he should be responsible to? Somebody that has not been able to take care of his own personal safety by the virtue of how he has been equipped. How do you now want that person to respond to another 400? So I think we should look at our security architecture from the proactive side, rather than waiting for things to happen and start deploying soldiers to the bush, comb everywhere, bring them to justice. Why don't we have a security architecture that will be able to, pick up this thing? Just like he's saying, we go on, even on our smartphone, if I want to see something going in and out of my house, the Google map is there. I could pinpoint on my location in my house and I'll be able to see movements. Even if I cannot be able to say this is the person, but I should be able to say that something is going in, or a car is driving, or a car is driving, I will not be able to get the plate number. So these are proactive things that we need to do, so that it sort of gives operational capacity to our security agencies. Okay,
Mr. Olabode, there are also different theories, conspiracy theories. Some actually also said that when you look at the root causes of all this crisis at different points that we have it, it's actually lack of justice. The justice system is not actually paying well, and of course the intervention of government in some of the areas when there are communal clashes, you have you see reports of government also being complicit in some of the issues or taking sides in some of the conflict. And another point, you have installation of in the Niger Delta, for instance, some of them are talking largely about how soldiers, military men, they engage the youth, and the youth are also, the governments are saying that you shouldn't do this. In the bordered areas, for instance, you also have the smugglers fighting the custom officers, trying to have their way along the line. And we have these things going back and forth. And some said government actually create most of this crisis for themselves. I look at the Boko Haram case that happened in Borno then, the Mohamed Yusuf of these days, and of course how that festered into what eventually became a national crisis. So how much, the government have responsibility to protect and of course to monitor things. How much of the work are they also leaving undone or unattended to? We talk about ungoverned spaces every time. Government is responsible for that. Now some say you just go around in circle, you see government everywhere, that they are not doing what they ought to be doing. And that's why we have this level. So how much of that can we start to be part of to ensure that we secure every part of the country at the different levels?
Now, Samiat, I appreciate that question. And while Venerable was talking, I remembered something. A Qatari organization released the list of sponsors of Boko Haram to the last administration. It wasn't published. It's on record. Now, those individuals have cover in government. It's just a simple explanation for that. Now, I understand from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's one individual, I think a few individuals in the north, some tied to a bureau de change and other establishments have been identified. Now, this sends a very loud and clear signal to those in the underworld that a new sheriff is in town and it won't be business as usual. Now, we have security on 3 levels, on 4 levels actually. There's the federal government, there's the state government, there's the local government, and then of course there's the community. I think we should begin to take these things with very, very great seriousness. And the earlier we do, the better. Because if we are to rely solely on federal government, we'll be making mincemeat of ourselves. The state government also should also be held to tax because there's a lot of money that goes into security, for crying out loud. Thanks to Baba Dedibu and Ladoja, we got to know how much there is involved here. Humongous amount of money. And so we need to prioritize it, and then I think the electorate should also begin to hold the feet of the government to the fire, especially at the state level, at the local government level. And communities also should begin to devise means for themselves. I think it was at this forum I was sharing what gave birth to the mafia in Italy back then was the collapse of the infrastructure, security infrastructure back then. And then people began to put their faith in a parallel system that was paying them. They began to pay tribute to them. They began to pay money for protection to them. God forbid we get to that level today. But back to your question, the way forward here, all hands must be on deck. Now we hold federal government to account. We hold state governments particularly to account because, like I will always say, from here to Abuja is far, but Okemoson is not far from us. And then, of course, the local government in this area also, no matter how little it is, must also bring in their own inputs to the table. By the time we do this collectively, there's no hiding place for criminality.
No, I mean, let me also take it from the point you raised in the middle of your comments. The issue of state police, the issue of the changing narratives about who should really, Nigerians should really be held responsible for poor governance. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo was in Abia State, I think sometime last week, to commend the governor of that state, Oti, for what he's doing in that state. And if you also, if you've gone through the papers this morning, Lagos State government has come out to say they are ready for state police. Recently, too, President Tinubu actually said there's need for states to set up a forest rangers, and all of that. Now, the states, so that we don't digress from our topic, the states, are they also realizing this? Are they also realizing the fact that if security was intact in different states, then they can actually engender, better economic systems that would, better the lots of those that live in. Because I also wonder, sometimes people will say, the usual narrative that we have is that, that road is federal government road. But that federal government road, passes through a particular state. And those who apply the road are people of that state. They are not federal people, So I think, do you think we are beginning to understand, as Nigerians, we're beginning to understand those who should be held responsible, for proper governance, now that a lot of people are now talking at the state governors?
Yes. You see, if there's a law of science that says that every object assumes a state of rest until an equal and relevant force is applied to it. Now, government will not move on its own except we have pressure groups. And we have individuals that begin to agitate and to ask them to do the needful. And sadly, that is what we find in Africa, without being biased to Nigeria. But in other climes, these are responsibilities that are basic, that are statutory, that the government sees as its own obligation. But here we need to exert a lot of pressure because we are the ones wearing the shoe and we know how much it is biting us. So we need to begin to make concerted effort, get ourselves in clusters and begin to put pressure on the government, make a lot of awareness as to what and what should be done. Because if we leave it, they will go at their own pace. There are other priorities. And remember, this is politics. The next election is what the politician would always want to fight for. Once he's not able to return again, it's also who will succeed.
What should be the role of the state assemblies in all of this? I mean, and they also
should be at the front line.
Pushing the governors.
They should be at the front line.
Yeah.
And those constituent members who have representatives there, once they come home, it is not a time to begin to ask them what they brought from anything for the boys. No, no, it's beyond that. I think we have a team of youths now that are more combative. Thank God for NSAS. We can see that there's a new generation coming that will not take it with the kind of posture in which my own generation sadly took it. They would not have any of it. And so those coming into office should just buckle up.
Okay, Venerable, look at the stronghold of Nigeria in African economy, agriculture, energy, and if you look at where we have this in abundance, we have agriculture is in abundance in the north. People farm a lot in the north, even here in the southwest, we also farm. South oil. And these are two engendered sectors. If you look at security, I mean, how much of loss have we had in the past? Are we also likely to continue to lose, as a result of insecurity?
Thank you very much. Before I come to that, let me just buttress what the other speaker has spoken about. I think when we're talking about our pressure groups, I think the human rights, the NGOs, the labor congresses, the TUCs of this day have failed this country. Because while we were growing up, those were the people we look up to be able to take up the fight, to be able to, but nowadays you find out that it's more about, I don't know how to put it, but one way or the other, the common good of the people is no more what they are fighting for. You find out that a lot of NGOs are now set up just to attract foreign, foreign funding. And as soon as the fund comes in, it's shared, and that's the end of it. I even found out that some of them that even come out to agitate, they want to agitate because of what they will get out of it. And I think I think we need to go back to the basics. We need to go back. These people should either you want to fight the cause for which you have registered or for which you have come out that you want to do this, or go back to your shell. So if you are an NGO that's fighting kidnapping, let us know that you're fighting kidnapping. It is not only shouting about kidnapping, it is your duty to investigate and find out who are those behind kidnapping.
Okay.
Investigative journalism, we don't have it any longer.
It's not about personal values and integrity. Because who whips them to line? Who tells them this they are saying?
That is exactly. You don't just wake up one day and say, I want to become a human rights activist. It must be something that's in you. You don't go to school to learn how to become an activist.
Yes.
The very basic thing is that it's already in you. The love for humanity, the love for justice, the love for equal rights and something. It must be in you. You can then go, and improve on it. So that's why I'm saying that if we really want to come out It's not because you don't go into human rights because you are jobless, because you don't have work to do.
You know what we have largely, like you said, you know, we had a one-sided guest that talked about the people that largely occupy the NGO platforms now. That the people you're talking about, like you just mentioned earlier about, you know, the people that are supposed to be fighting insecurity are also people that are, you know, are there. You know, of course, some say that these people you're calling to come and fight, activists and all of that, they are also part of these people. And they just wanted to look at elections, for instance. They talk about election observers, you know, within the country. At the end of the day, the pressure groups that would largely dominate the election, you know, what's it called, posts and all of that. You see that they are also people of interest. And of course, they don't want it to look like, oh, nothing is being done. So apart from all of this, Venerable, we have the issue of...
I still have an answered question.
Maybe you should answer that.
Question. We're talking about our agriculture, oil, energy sector. And that's why I say we must not rule out this conspiracy theory. You will find out that in the last 10 years, the agitation has been about Africa using its resources rather than exporting it. A lot of people have been coming out that, yeah, the Western world has deliberately been putting Africa down so that we continue to be the source of their raw material. And if you find out that any government in the African sector wants to go against that thing, you will always find, so what happened to Gaddafi and so many other, you know, leaders that actually want to emancipate Africa. So we need to look at that. So when you look at the issue of farmer herders, for example, you will find out that farmers and herders have been cohabiting for years. But you now find out that you got to a point that it becomes a deliberate destructive tendencies. Because in the past, even the others knew exactly where to, you know, take their hands through, that it will not affect the farmer. But you now find out that it got to a time that they will just unleash the herds on the farm. And when you look at the level of destruction, so you find out that there must be some level of conspiracy.
Okay.
Whether internal or external. And I think this is something that the intelligence community in this country needs to work at.
But isn't that also about the body language of leaders in Africa? I watched a video recently of the Rwandan president, you know, criticizing his colleagues, telling them that they can actually stay within Africa to solve Africa's problems. That all they do is that they go to Europe.
Like local government, they go to America, like local government chairman.
Exactly.
They go to Abuja.
You know, and if you have many of Rwanda presidents, you know, ruling African countries, aren't you going to have the kind of change you're talking about?
Yeah, we will have it, but it's going to take time, because majority of those that are in power today got there by virtue of assistance from this Western world that we're talking about. Very few of them got there on their own, you know, on their own thing, and that's why you have president like, you know, the Rwandan president, you know, how as of today, you cannot really say whether Rwanda is a democratic country or a military. It's a mix of the two. And that means that he must have, you know, turned deaf ears to the Western words of this world. And he's getting results for his country. So I believe that as we go ahead, we'll begin to have more of those people. There are certain things that President Bola Tinubu Ahmed have done that ordinarily, if it were, you know, to rely solely on the Western, you know, origin or something like that, it wouldn't have done it. It takes somebody with, you know, some level of, you know, how do I pull it?
It's a mafia.
Yeah, no, not mafia. you know, somebody that has this thing, you know, you call it, where they have balls, you know, to be able to, you know, go out and do certain things. People are saying that, okay, he shouldn't have announced the removal on the first day. And I know Nigeria for what we are. If he had said, okay, we are in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we are going to remove this, you know what will have happened.
With the science that we're seeing, when Tinubu came into office, he traveled abroad, trying to convince foreign countries, foreign investors to come into. But with what we are seeing, are you sure these investors will want to come?
Look, Nigeria, any day, anytime, anywhere, Nigeria is a fertile ground for investment. Whether you want to come or you don't want to come, the fact remains that we are about 220 million people.
Market.
It's an open market. It's like, even as of today, with the herders and farmers clashes, people are still farming. People are still going to the farm. They weigh their options. And they still go there. But just like Ian said, the body language of the government or the leader will assist will assist the investors in making their choices. Okay, we want to go to Nigeria, there is insecurity in Nigeria, but the present government is fighting it, and we can see results that are coming out. So let's give it a chance. So we'll have that, we really have that. But be it or not, Nigeria is not somebody, it's not a country that can be taken for granted anywhere in the world.
Okay, Mr. Olabode, we've had conversations too about insecurity and the economy. The people want prosperity. We want to go to the market, smile to the market, get whatever we want, and go back home safely. And of course, we want our children to go to school and be safe in school. And along the line, we say that there is politics always, trying to be a stopgap in between whether we are going to be prosperous or we are not going to be prosperous. So, at what contributions or what is it that the people also need to do? How do we draw the line that this is not going to be politics, so that we can solve our problem and make Nigeria working for majority of Nigerians? So if there is politicization and the people are also part of those that play the politics, at the end of the day, if anything happens, like what we have in the north, for instance, during former President Muhammadu Buhari, you could see that some are saying that even the north are not ready to solve the problem of the north in terms of security, because the senator...
Friendly and business friendly rest on them. Now, this is where the rubber hits the road. If you notice, there are some parts of this country now that either we like it or not, people will stay away from it because of the fear of losing capital. It will just be a colossal waste trying to make any kind of investment there. But then there are other areas that are safely peaceful and is suitable for investment. So any investor coming in will look at this area. Well, it is still the same country. We can from this place launch to other parts and take the risk. But they will not station whatever it is that is the service, yes, that they are rendering in a particular location, because of the first thing you look at is security. We can't scream this enough. And the efforts of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which is commendable in trying to get foreign investments into this place. The tackling of security must be frontal, and it must be sustained. Okay. We need to just sustain it. With this tempo that he has begun with is commendable. The releasing of the names of these individuals who are involved in the sponsor of terrorism, and then when people are brought to book for crimes that are security related, let there be a court that is special for them. Accelerated hearing. You are impeding people from going to their farm, capturing them also. There's a court for you. Under 24 hours you are tried. And then there are new prisons built to accommodate them.
With the role of Nigeria, for instance, in Africa, as the giant of Africa, we have the continental free trade area, also part of what Africa is thinking, like he discussed earlier. So how much role do we need to play just to get Africa working, and of course from the inside as well?
You see, Africa has to wake up to one thing. The fact that anybody from abroad or from any other part of the world will come and fix our problem for us is not going to happen. And there's a lot of business that is undone within African countries. We don't do business amongst ourselves. And it's sad. And it's sad. Now, I need to say this and get it off my chest. either we like it or not, Africa is currently the battleground between two civilizations. The Western civilizations and then the Eastern civilization that are aligned against the West. I'm talking about Russia, China. Who are on this side, and the United States and Europe on that other side. Africa is a battleground. And it's important to wake up and smell the coffee and begin to make decisions that are informed and begin to act in unity. Because once they begin to isolate Chad as a small nation, isolate Niger as they are doing now with a lot of success, then we begin to sing with discordant tunes.
Integration.
But I think the African Union needs to be rejigged. That is why we need the Nkrumahs of this world, we need the Azikiwes of this world to begin to rise from these platforms.
I was actually going to ask Venerable that, are we still likely to have them, Azikiwes of this world, Awolos of this world? Do we still have them around? Do we have men like them around?
We will still have them. It's a passing phase. It's you know, it has to do with evolution. People like that don't just come. But at a point in time, somebody like that will still rise. Okay. They will still rise.
We have to go now. Because even in football, in sports, there is trouble. I read in the papers this morning, somebody said that the NFF should not dare appoint a foreign coach for the Super Eagles, otherwise they will take them to court. You know, so it's really getting there.
That means I want to look inwards.
If you do that, we'll take you to court. You know, and that's the first time such a thing is happening. Just very much, thank you so much for coming, Venerable Samson Popoala, Chairman of PCRC. Thank you so much, and Mr. Bayo Olabode, Public Affairs Analyst. We also thank you so much for joining us on this program this morning. Thank you. When we come back, we'll still be talking about the economy and this time around the rising debt profile of Nigeria. As at the third quarter of last year, 87.91 trillion naira has been recorded as Nigeria's debt. You know, want to look at that, how that will continue to affect us in the depressed economy that we're experiencing. Stay with us, don't go anywhere.